Morning.
Morning, guys.
We're loaded up and headed down to Roanoke, going down to one of our buddies' farms, George Robinson. He owns Robinson Cattle Company. We're going to go learn a little bit about some silage. They started cutting this morning and George is chopping right now. We're going to go do a little ride along, check it out, and see what they're getting into.
George is a longtime friend and mentor to Ben and I both. He's a big cattle farmer, hay farmer as well, and he's just has a plethora of knowledge. He's our go-to guy when we have questions. So we're gonna go do some ride along with him. We've been kicking around the idea of doing a little silage for our calves in the future, and we'll show you kind of the different process of the silage versus haylage, what we normally do. The silage, he's going to chop it up in small pieces, 3/4 to 1 inch long, pack it in a pit, and basically when it's time to feed, he'll go back in and grab that silage out, put it in a mixer, and feed it to the calves. So should be a fun trip, learn a lot. I like these trips because he can teach me more in 5 minutes than I can learn on my own in 2 years. So I always treasure the times to go learn things like this.
We are pulling up to George's. Show you a little bit of his farm. He just has built this silage pit. It's a precast silage pit that they had built over the winter time. They are putting it to use.
This pit is 80 feet wide and 250 feet long. He put precast walls in and then solid poured the floor back a few months ago.
You can see over there he built him a little ramp. That's how he loads back out. This here, we're riding through George's farm. Back over there is his main barn. He does a lot of feeding back there behind it. It's pretty bad when these little paths through George's property are not quite as rough as the Alabama roads.
Still a good point.
That's what we're coming to see.
Let me introduce you to my friend. This is Mr. George Robinson. He's like a mentor to me. Been friends for probably 12, 15 years. And when I have a problem with cattle, hay, I call George. This man's like a walking encyclopedia. So he's gonna let us ride along today, do some chopping. He'll tell us kind of the process of what he's doing, and we'll talk about kind of what he started with to where he is now. So all we are is hindering him today, but he's at least taking the time out to kind of show us. He's always been a good teacher and a mentor, and that's what he's doing today, to see if it's something we make it do in the future. So here's Mr. George. You say hello and kind of tell him what we're doing, George.
Just chopping silage. We do a wheat rye mix in this field. Works good for us. Easy to produce. Puts out good tonnage.
You tell him you had some Triticale, right?
Correct. This is the first year we can try it. We had a pretty bad winter kill on it. Not pretty bad, real bad. Where we grazed it, it wasn't too bad, but it got too high, and in February we had some 40-degree nights, and it killed it.
What would the difference Triticale be protein-wise versus wheat or ryegrass?
It would be awful close.
Okay.
Because it is a derivative of wheat.
It's almost, Triticale looks more like wheat to me, but it looks like a mixture between the two, right?
It is, correct.
Okay. Does it get, it's more stemmy, correct, than ryegrass is?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And we were supposed to, you know, we'd heard some good things about it. The tonnage was supposed to be a little better, but when the winter kill came, it knocked it all out.
But you feel like if the winter kill hadn't hit it, that you were heading in the...
Correct. We had a lot of volume there, and it was probably 30, 36 inches tall when it hit it.
Gotcha.
And for our part of the country, it's going to get big on if you can't graze it.
Right.
So it just, I don't think it's a good fit for us, but it will fit somebody's program.
That's what we were talking about. The ground out here is like our hay fields, and people out west that are watching, they kind of, it looks like they chop on a pool table and just kind of hang out. But when you get on hills like this, you have to get creative when you get the chopping on you.
A lot of angles, a lot of turns.
Moving parts.
Yeah, you got up and down. It's challenging, but I mean, that's what we're used to.
Right. On a field like this, how many tons of matter we usually get per acre?
We like to be 15 to 18, and we can pretty much consistently do that.
Okay.
And you'll have spots that you'll get over 20.
Okay.
And that's a tremendous amount of volume. But you know, that's upland red clay.
Upland, non-irrigated red clay. What about first versus second cut?
Well, this first one that's going to be your high volume.
Right.
So, you know, we've had all winter to get the volume.
How much will it fall off on the second cut?
Half.
Okay. So if you get 8 to 9 tons, like so, your money maker is
Just
first cut.
Round.
Okay.
You know, we have all those winter rains to,
right.
You know, those warm days, you know, early, late winter, early spring.
Got a truck coming, so we'll jump in, do some riding with George, and let him teach us something about cutting silage.
That's Bandit.
Bandit. How about Bandit? Is Bandit riding too?
No, he'll probably follow us a ways.
Adjust header height?
Correct.
On the
fly.
I got you.
And it's a pretty good transition between a tractor and a sample weld machine. When you start down, it really digs in that front end.
In other words, this ain't as easy as a baler, just let it go on the gauge wheels and go. You're constantly adjusting.
Correct.
Now this was cut today, correct?
Correct.
Cut this morning, raked, and we're sitting here about an hour after lunchtime chopping.
Correct.
So not only having to watch your header, drive, watch your truck, but you're also having to adjust your chute to make sure you're not overshooting your truck, right?
Correct. Started out with a 90 horsepower tractor. When I pull behind, we either blow it into a dump or we blow it into a wagon on the back. We went there, blew it into a wagon on the back now because I can load these trucks so fast.
Right.
But it would take us, we went from a 90 horsepower to a good 60 days to get it chopped. 250 horsepower in 30 days, and then we're running 600 horsepower and we get it done in 10 days.
10 days. Today we are mid-70s, going to be 78, close to 80 degrees today with 30% humidity, so it dries out in a hurry when it's on the ground. So it's kind of a cat and mouse game where you want them to stay far enough ahead to where if you have equipment trouble, still stay ahead. You don't want somebody shutting down. So, but there's just a lot of moving pieces. You got to cut it, you got to rake it. Now, obviously, you don't fluff anything, you don't ted anything because we're trying to get as much moisture in this silage as you can. So it's a cut, it's a rake, chop, and then it's a race to get it in the pit, get it packed. What is the best thing you've ever used to pack with? All I ever hear is ground pressure. I see that you're packing with a dozer. Do you see any effect with a smaller amount of ground pressure on tracks versus rubber tire packing?
It's extremely hard for us for a tractor, our circuit. We don't have one really big enough. But even 150 horsepower tractors have a hard time keeping up with these trucks.
You're putting so much volume into being a rubber tire tractor without it being a big tractor would struggle to pack it, right?
Correct. And we normally have there's a tractor over on the side, we normally have another man packing with the dozer. So just the dozer by itself is not typical, but it is. That's what we've got to deal with today.
Gotcha.
You know, it's a juggle to get enough people.
Yeah.
You bring all your guys in, and you have to hire a couple of extra guys to try to cover.
That's my first load of silage ever. Now tell me this, I used to see you plant a lot of grain sorghum. Do you still do grain sorghum?
We do.
What are the benefits of it versus what in the wheat and ryegrass and
Well, the
triticale?
silage, the sorghum's going to be a better quality. And it is easy to chop. This wheat's a little tougher to chop at times. And, you know, you get in that grain sorghum, you know, it'll be 8 foot tall.
Right.
And it's just tremendously better. It mixes so much better. It packs, the waste, when I say waste, I mean in the pit or in the field, just the waste is minimal.
Is that stalk soft? Is that one? Does it chop up easy?
It would chops like corn.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now
it
why?
chops really easy.
Why do you prefer it over corn, or do you prefer it over?
Well,
corn?
I don't really have corn ground.
Gotcha.
It would all be upland dry corn, and we just get so dry here in the summer. It's really a crapshoot.
Okay.
With the wheat through the winter, its risk is minimal. And when I do the sorghum, my risk is still minimal, tremendously less risky than corn.
Gotcha.
So
In other words, if corn, you need corn ground, it's not suitable here, so all you're trying to do is, like every other farmer, is minimize risk.
correct.
You put all that money into corn and you got upland ground, if it doesn't yield outright, then you're backing up. So
Correct.
even though you know this isn't as good a quality silage as what corn would be, it's still a lot safer bet for you because you get the pit full. And what, for instance, what would corn be protein wise versus wheat, just to give them an idea of what you think the difference would be feed
Your wheat's probably running 12 to 14, whereas your corn might be 16 to 18.
So it's better, but it's not just.
And another thing too, we can change the protein in the ration.
Okay.
We have the option to put corn or dry distillers or peanut skin. You know, we have a lot of flexibility when we build that ration.
And to give you guys an idea, George runs a stocker operation and backgrounds cattle, and he is feeding predominantly all this is fed to calves. So you viewers are looking in, it's not, he does have mama cows and has a good many cows, but it's not, tell them the reason that you do that. What do you normally feed to?
Correct, we start cattle. Our cow-calf side is just about all hay. Unless we're catching some cows, we don't ever feed them a mixed ration. And in this country, it's pretty easy to keep grass. And, you know, our feed cows is minimal. Now back on the calf side, we feed calves year-round.
Basically, to a cow-calf operator, this one never makes sense.
Correct. It's just too much investment.
This is too much investment. It's a lot of work, a lot of people you have to line up to do this, and you got to make it pencil out on the other end, and calves is where it works for you.
Correct. You know, we're feeding, when we're coasting, we'll feed 2,000 a day, and when we get cranked up in the fall, we'll feed 4,500. So we're running some, a decent amount of feed through here.
4,500 head of calves a day.
Correct.
Got you from 2,000
And that's
head.
probably 150,000 pounds of feed.
I got you per day.
Correct.
I'm impressed with how fast we chop. I didn't think you would be able to run this quick in that kind of tonnage.
You gotta have good knives.
And horsepower, right?
Correct.
Good knives and horsepower. Ben and I, and you taught me this, to do haylage, and you do a good ryegrass haylage. But some of the viewers may be confused with tell them why you don't just bale it all in haylage and then grind it. That's rough.
Grinding is slow. And you can say, well, I can grind one day and feed for 2 weeks. Well, yeah, you could, but that's a lot of labor involved. In reality, you're not feeding that much.
And you're doing all your grinding up front.
Correct.
With silage, it's done, dude.
If we put it in haylage, I'd have to have somebody grinding 7 days a week.
Gotcha. It's not like you could run out there 1 day a week, grind and feed for the rest. The amount of feed that you're feeding, somebody would have to be constantly grinding.
Correct. And it's a fairly slow process. Even if you have big tractors and big grinders, it's not fast.
When we say background or starting calves, George, he will basically, as these buyers go into sale barns, and when they buy calves, they may be from 100 different farms coming in here, but he gets them straight out of the barn, gets the calves, and he's responsible for starting those calves and keeping them 60, 75 days before they go out to feedlots out west. It's different for different orders, but he is responsible for the health of that calf. So what he's trying to do here is provide the best feed, and he's, what I would say, providing feed in-house. He's using feed that's grown on his farm to feed to the calves that come in, trying to keep them in the best shape possible, because if he doesn't have a good livability on those calves, those buyers get a bad taste in their mouth. So the better of a job that he can do keeping them alive, the happier everybody is. And then not only keep them alive, but he's got to get them started and gaining weight and healthy, right?
Correct.
All right, so Alan's leaving with a load. They're raking some more. We got out of the chopper. Hopefully y'all can hear us okay. But George's gonna tell us a little bit about how he got started, and his dad was a farmer, kind of like myself. So I know you guys like to hear family history and farming. So tell us a little bit about growing up on a farm and the process of silage and who started it and all that.
Correct. We've done silage for most part as long as I can remember. We started with a dirt pit, dirt floor, dirt sides, small tractors, short dump trucks, and it was challenging to say the least. Pits, in the wintertime you had big mud holes in your pits and trying to get your feed out and keep it clean. And it was a struggle. And we did a little bit of corn, a little bit of sorghum. We didn't do any wheat at that time. And we worked through it. It was strictly for really a brood cow operation, but we started our own calves.
So this wasn't a dairy operation, and
no.
That's one thing that's rare in our area. Is this is something you see geared most of the time toward a dairy operation. It's imperative for them. So in our area where we live, I personally don't know anybody else that does silage. There are people, but I don't know of people myself that do silage for background in calves. Now you'll see it in the dairy industry a little bit. So this is why it's new and exciting to me too, is because he's doing this on a stocker backgrounding operation, and that's real rare in our country. Now your dad did as well for the same thing, calves, right?
Our own cattle. We didn't do any custom work.
Okay. It was just what did y'all do? Raise your calves out?
Correct.
And
it was a 250 mama cow operation, and just really trying to figure ways to do better.
And that's one thing that's impressive to me about George is how they progress, and they work at it. But it's just they're kind of ahead of their times in what they do. And what kind of years would that have been? What, in the 70s?
The late 70s, we actually built another pit. We came out of that dirt pit. Went to my grandmama said she wasn't pulling him out anymore. So we had to upgrade pits. So we went from to a decent sized pit, and actually last year we've upgraded from the original concrete pit. So.
And the one I showed them a pic or a video of. The one now is 80 feet wide and 250 feet long. Okay, with precast walls.
Correct. It worked really good. We were real pleased the way it turned out.
How miserable is a dirt pit? Is it the?
Well, for our country, you just can't. The rain just gets us. You would have muddy feet. Walls caving in. That's just a nightmare. A tremendous amount of waste.
Gotcha. So. Did your dad, back in those years, was it a pull type as well?
Everything was a pull type. We pulled them with 40-20 tractors with New Holland choppers, and I've forgotten what brand of high dump we had. A couple different ones. And then we did it for a long time, then we quit. It just got so dry, it was hard to get those summer crops to grow. And in the 80s, it was very dry here. So we didn't, we stopped doing it for a long period of time. And then 20 years later, my dad got hurt. We had to do some things, make some change to try to generate more income, and we started doing some cattle for the public.
Now, how long can silage last in a pit?
A long time.
So if you don't feed it up next year,
it's good.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't. If it's covered and airtight, it's just really like money in the bank. That field, it's there.
What will you do, like? If that silage is in the back of the pit and you don't use it up, and next year it's time to chop, what do you do
Well,
then?
in the past, we just had to go in front of it. But now the pit's big enough to where we could rotate it around if we wanted to.
Gotcha.
That's not a really big issue because I know what the quality is.
Okay, right. How long would it last? Would it last 3-4 years
Well,
more?
I've heard, plus, I would, if you cut that air off, it's going to be good in 10 years.
Gotcha.
It may still shrink a little bit more, but I would still feed it.
It's the same thing as something in the freezer. If it's vacuum sealed good, it should be good in the freezer for a long time. It's kind of the same process, right? Cut the air off to it and it'll last.
But if you don't have a good seal over the top, that air is going to just keep working its way through there.
Do y'all do tires and plastic on top?
We actually will do plastic wrap bales and tires.
Gotcha.
Anything we can find.
How much, if you get a good seal on top, do you still have an inch or two of waste?
Yeah, you could be 6 to 10 inches in there on top, even with a good seal.
Okay.
Because you're going to have coyotes and birds and foxes, try to dig in.
What would it look like if you had flat ground and you did a pile of silage for someone that may be starting? Would it be a disaster if you piled silage outside on flat ground, packed it, and covered it? Would it be just a waste of time to do that?
It'd be I see that done a lot.
Okay.
Then I wouldn't have any, if you've got a biggest thing, is for our country, you still need a concrete floor.
Gotcha.
But if you had the machinery to put it up there in the pile and pack it good, you'd be fine.
You're saying that the floor is more important. If you had to choose one of the two,
correct.
The floor is more important than the walls.
Correct.
If you had to.
Because even when you put that silage in it, you got all that moisture going down.
That's right. That makes sense. So
it's just going to be so saturated where you have to drive in there.
It's just going to be leaching.
It'd be awful.
I got you.
You're just going to be going in a mud hole. Because once you've got a hole, there's really no way to fix it because you still have water coming.
Right. Makes sense.
We're headed back north, going back up to our farm. Got to go check on some chickens. George is still chopping some more silage, hauling some more silage, packing it in. What you think?
I was impressed. I thought it was very efficient. I knew he had grown a lot in his operation, but that was pretty impressive to be able to go from 60 days to 10 days with a couple of equipment improvements. And efficiency is kind of what farming's all about. That's how you survive. So make sure to, if you're in a position to be like George and be a mentor to somebody, I think it's important to take time. He he has never faltered at all to answer our questions. He's always happy to answer them, and he's on a whole different level of farming than what we are, but he never acts like it agitates him at all. So if you're in a position to help someone, take the time to do it, because it means a lot to us. It may be a little bit of an aggravation, a little bit out of your day, your time, but it's pretty cool when someone like that takes time to teach you something we won't forget.
And on the opposite end of that, if something you don't know, don't be afraid to ask. Got talking to George about silage, and he opened up the door for us to come down and check it out and learn about his operation. So one afternoon of riding around with George can teach us a lot.
Yeah. One takeaway that we covered right there at the end, George said that, you know, we're still mainly a cow-calf operation, so hay and haylage is going to always continue to be a big part of what we do. So he thought a good plan for us to try in the future would be continue to cut our first cutting, possibly second cutting of ryegrass and use it as haylage. Come behind the ryegrass, plant grain sorghum. He says it'll take about 60 days to mature and cut. So, you know, we can even cut 2 cuttings of ryegrass and then get a cutting of grain sorghum for silage. So I thought that was a good plan that worked for us, because we just need a little silage. We don't need the quantity that he has. So it was definitely worth our drive down. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's something different for us, and it should be for you. And again, thanks to George. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. We do appreciate it.
Thank y'all for watching our video. If you have any questions about silage or anything else we do, be sure and leave those down in the comments. Don't forget, click that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Thank y'all for watching. We'll see you next time.
Hey, before we go, hit us with a Bible verse.
Bible verse for the day, John 14, verse 6. Y'all go check it out. It's a good one.
See you on the next one.